Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz back in the house. That's right. And this afternoon we had Allison McBann in the house. Now tonight we have S.A. Snyder in the house, also known as Steven Snyder. So we're going to have some talk about wolves and children's education, all of that good stuff. We've got a lot of cool things going on. And his tea is the Intergallic 12-year-old. That's right. We're going to talk about that 12-year-old because that's what he gave me for a tea. We don't have a beverage. We have storytelling and words in this house, and we're going to actually open up some doors. So before we get started, we're going to get everybody over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel, Spotify, all of those good places, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and give those places a subscribe, like, follow, and share these tea times out because I guarantee one tea time will resonate with somebody in your family, in your community, in your home, all of that good stuff. So let's get started with disclaimer and then an intro, and then we're going to get Steven in here and we're going to spill some tea together and we're going to have some fun tonight. So disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicated to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutic advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit Linktree Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect those wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. I'm going to give you a little bit on Steven. So tonight I'm thrilled to pour a creative cup with S.A. Snyder, an author, podcaster, and imaginative storyteller whose passion is inspiring kids and adults to rediscover magic of fantasy. S.A. is the creator behind the Town Magician series and host of Discovered Worldsmiths, where he helps other writers share their voices with the world. Through his adventures filled with wolves, world, and wonder, he reminds us that storytelling is a gateway to courage, curiosity, and connection. So grab your cup, open your imagination, and join us as we step into realms where lessons hide in legends and every page invites us to believe again. Let me get Steven in here and let's spill some tea.
Hello, Miss Liz. How are you?
I am good. It's nice to see you here, Steven. Do you want me to call you Steven? Call you S.A.?
Steven's fine. Yeah, that's my name. S.A. is just my writing it. I stole it from J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, S.A. Schneider.
Oh, there you go.
Since my first name is Stephen, spelled with a PH, and Stephen King spells his with a PH. My original thing, jokingly, I was going to be Stephen Ace because Ace beats a king, but I didn't do that.
We're playing a poker hand here.
That's right.
Well, Stephen, I'm going to take you down a little rabbit hole that I take everybody on. Who was Stephen as a little guy, and who's Stephen now?
Who is Stephen now? I think I'm discovering myself like I used to be. Went through some adult times, and with my kids, I think I started being my kid self again, which is why they call me the intergalactic 12-year-old. For those that know, I believe it's taken from Doctor Who, but they called me that all the time because they felt I was like a 12-year-old. And I'm kind of discovering that of myself a little bit again, that I missed it. I missed me. And I'm through my writing, through work, trying not to get stressed with work, and discovering all the things that I really enjoy with life.
Well, because you brought up Doctor Who, did you like Doctor Who?
You know what? When I was a kid, it was a thing. We liked the Doctor, and I did not watch a lot of it. I knew of it. Then when it got rebooted, my kids fell in love with it, and I was, okay. I watched a few with them, but then my wife and her family was super into it. So suddenly everybody in the family was a Doctor Who fan except me. And I said, well, maybe I should give this a bit of a try. And Matt Smith is my doctor. When I saw Matt Smith as the doctor, I'm like, oh my gosh, that I understand it now. He's the one. I get it. So yes, now a bigger Doctor Who fan. Very saddened that Disney only gave it 2 years, and then they booted it. And it's and Cootie is gone after 2 years. I thought he was great. I haven't been keeping up quite as much, but yes, I know of Doctor Who now.
So let's get into that 12-year-old little boy, because something happened at the age of 12 that you're stuck on that 12-year-old boy?
No, it's just that's the age, where you start becoming last age of a kid. Then you're a teenager and you start growing up. And it was just the quote from Doctor Who was intergalactic 12-year-old. And a lot of the stuff I write is in that 10 to 12 year range. So, after 12, you start getting upper middle school and getting into high school, and, life changes a lot. And I think we lose the kid that we had. And I think a lot of adults would do well to discover that again.
Well, that kind of brings me into the first question that came in for you tonight, Stephen. And it is, what first drew you to writing fantasy stories for children?
The Girl Scouts.
Not the answer I was expecting.
Well, I was a Girl Scout leader when my daughter was younger, and I noticed that all the girls were reading, which was great, but they were all reading books that had male protagonists. And I said, you know what? These girls need a good female protagonist. They need a strong female. And then, of course, I drug my feet and everything came out, the Hunger Games and Hermione and, all these other strong female characters have come out since then. So the first book I wrote was a female character, but the book was horrible. So I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day unless I really want to spend a lot of time revamping the whole thing. But that was my initial impetus for writing, was my Girl Scouts.
Wow, not the answer I was expecting. I was not expecting Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I had a great group of Girl Scouts. We looked at the Girl Scout book a lot and what they wanted the girls to do at whatever age and the requirements. And we kind of looked at each other, me and my co-leader, and looked at the girls, and they're like, that's stupid. And we hardly ever followed the book. We did more of what my boys did in Boy Scouts than what the girls did in Girl Scouts.
Wow. Are you still a guide for Girl Scouts?
No. Both my kids are grown and out. I've moved beyond that. It would be way creepy to have a guy with no girls as a Girl Scout leader, I think. So I didn't even want to go there.
Especially in today's world, right?
Right. But I do run into the girls every now and then, and they know me. They're like, "Oh, Mr. Schneider, how are you?" And I get updates on how their life is going because they're all grown. They're getting married. Kaylee lives in Ireland, so things change.
Ireland came up in this afternoon's conversation, and look, it's coming up in tonight's conversation. Look at that.
There's something there, yeah.
Universe is speaking. Ireland. Maybe Miss Liz needs to go to Ireland.
Synchronicity.
The next question that came in for you is: why do you believe storytelling is essential for a child's emotional growth?
Well, we talk about a lot of the problems with kids nowadays, which I think some of it is they don't get a chance to be kids as much. There's a lot less time to be kids. And then, they don't understand necessarily what being a kid is. I see sixth graders, they're acting like they're at a serious job. And, school is secondary and they're just focused on sports because they really think they're going to be the one that makes it to the NFL. And there's so much focus on having to be serious, having to be driven. My God, my kid's in 5th grade and they haven't taken advanced college courses yet. They're so far behind. It's like, are you kidding me? And I haven't seen anything to show that pushing kids like that getting them into those advanced college classes, that doing all that helps in the long run. I think more of them get burnt out than anything, and they may even decline when they hit adulthood or they go crazy. It's like, oh my God, I have freedom. I'm gonna go party all, and suddenly 5 years later they realize, wait, what have I done with my life? Or 20 years later or 30. I think, kids need to be kids a little bit more. And I think that's what I'm discovering about myself. And I know I was just talking to my son today. He just turned 25. What did my son do for his 25th birthday? Did he go to a bar? No. He went to the zoo for a penguin encounter so he could pet penguins, and he dressed up as the penguin from Batman to do it. And he did it on the day that the penguin premiered in comic books. So, I mean, if that's not being a kid, he's a librarian out in Baltimore. He called me the first day of like a 6-year-old, 5-year-old came to get his first library card. And he was so excited because all these books, and Colin's like, that was like me, Dad. And then the little kid came running back. He says, look what I got. And he got Batman comics. And Colin was just ecstatic. That was the first card he gave out. So he keeps Pokemon cards at the desk. So they have a Pokemon club and kids come in and they don't have cards, and he gives them some cards, here, it's not a lot. You can't play much, but it's to get you started. He relates to kids a lot like I do. And, he gets it. So I'm really happy about all that. So I don't even remember where my ramble started with that.
No, that's okay. I like the penguin story. Like I like when we go down the rabbit holes, and I think that's really cool. Like my youngest is 25 too, and I couldn't see her doing that. She went and partied and went to a concert. Like, your kid is cool, man. He went just like a penguin. Like, I could just tell my youngest, like, come on, like, hey, where's your penguin suit? Like,
last month we went and saw Weird Al in concert. Next year we'll go see Rush again. So we do the concert stuff. Neither of us go to bars much, but going to Penguins, yeah, that's something we'll do.
I think that's really cool. Like, I didn't think that we'd have a conversation about penguins tonight, and I think that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen.
Penguins and wolves. That's my life.
Well, let's get into the wolves since you got into the wolves. Yes. Now let's get into the wolves, because that picture that you're here with on my screen, is that a wolf or is that a dog?
Nope, he's a hybrid wolf. He's 75% Saarloos wolf. So he's more wolf than dog, but he is a hybrid. Okay. He's a rescue. He had some bad bones in his forepaw that they didn't grow. So Ben's funny. And whoever had him, I don't know how they got him, if he was a shelter or whatever. He may have been abused a little bit. We're not sure. But they gave him to the dog pound. They didn't know what to do with him. And the dog pound's like, we can't, get anybody to get him. So we're just going to have to put him down. And my wife saw him and rescued him. So he didn't get put down, and he's been living a great life. His name's Hunter Moon, and he's a great boy. I've learned a lot more about wolves. I've always liked wolves, but wolves are great. They're pretty, blah, blah, blah. But I've learned a lot by reading more and learning about wolves, but by interacting with him. People are like, oh my gosh, wolves, I'm afraid of. Why are you afraid of wolves? They will leave you alone. The only reason a pack would maybe come after somebody is if they're starving. And even then that's questionable, but they're pack animals, they're family. He's a goof. We tell him all the time. He gets like all excited. He acts like a little puppy. And we're like, Hunter, the other wolves are laughing at you. The least you could do is have some dignity, man, because he'll roll on his
Wolf
belly.
it up, man.
Yeah. So, but he's a great boy. And so I started integrating him because I realized that's something I have that kids could, like, oh my gosh, you have a wolf, and they want to find out about this wolf. That intrigues them. So I could use that as the bridge to start some of the other stuff I do. And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, to be truthful, Hunter comes up with all the stories, but because he can't hold a pencil, I get to write them all down and claim them as my own. So I'm kind of,
does the howling, right?
Yes, exactly. People like that, makes them chuckle. And if I could interact with people and brighten their day a little bit, make them chuckle, make them think a little, and pass that little bit of imagination and find some joy in the world, then I've reached my goal for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just like, when you sent me that picture, I was just, and then I had said, oh, nice dog. And then I was like, maybe it's not a dog. Maybe it is a wolf.
Yeah, he's more wolf than not. We think there might be some German Shepherd in there. The vet wasn't 100% sure. But yeah, Saarloos wolf would be his most thing. And right now it's getting colder. So he's getting his big fluffy fur coat. Oh. He lays on the ground right now because it's not cold enough for him to be really cold. So he lays on the ground, sleeps.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I'm a northern girl, so I come from the up north, and the wild animals will not come after you unless they're hungry.
Yeah.
They don't just attack people.
And that's one of the things I'd like to do, either through talks at schools, through some of my writing, is get people to understand wolves aren't these dangerous, vile creatures like we hear in The Big Bad Wolf with the 3 little pigs and Red Riding Hood.
He was hungry.
Yes. They're not blowing your house down. They're not hunting you in the woods for your basket of food and eating granny and all that stuff. There's a lot to them. Very smart pack animals. We're part of his pack. And he accepts that as we're part of his pack. So very loving boy. But
it just goes to prove you right, Stephen, that the big bad wolf, he was hungry. He ate granny.
Exactly. Yeah. He's portrayed poorly. But he is still a wild animal. He gets clumps of fur that we have to cut out and brush and stuff. And he hates being brushed. And if it pulls his hair, he will turn and snap and growl. And it's like, okay, I respect the wolf in you. He's not going to attack me. I've never felt like he's going to attack me. But, you are a wild animal. I'm not pushing it. Like any trainer with animals will tell you,
Yeah. Well, and Stephen, I'm going to pull up the book that Mickey sent me, and let's talk about that book because that's part of the series. I know there's other ones, but we'll get everybody over to your website and all that so they can check out all these cool books. But tonight we're going to talk about this book. So I'm going to pull it up. Okay. Describe for the audio listeners what the cover looks like and the storyline and all that behind it because they ain't going to see the picture.
All right. Oh man, that is a great looking book. I really want to read that book.
Right?
I'm just getting people to think that way. So
I'm locked up.
Right. This is Transgression of Magic. It's book 2 in this Town Magician series. Now, my Town Magician series started as a short story. In Kent, Ohio, which is close to where I live, they do a Wizarding World Festival each year. And I didn't have anything that would fit there. So I wrote a short story. I'm like, I could do an author table with this short story and I could be at this Wizarding Fest. Well, of course, as I wrote it, I realized it needed this, that, and the other thing. And it grew from a 7,500 word short story to a full book, which then also led to the idea of 3 more books, possibly 7 to follow. So I've got an idea for a few more books. And this right now is book 2. And it's, the cover is done by a great artist by the name of Tom Zoller. You can look him up. He's wonderful. He's got some wonderful graphic novels he's done on Kickstarter and on his own, but he's also drawn other IP you may recognize, like the My Little Ponies reboot from about 10 years ago. He was part of that. If you get a graphic novel of My Little Ponies, you'll see his name in there, Tom Zoller. So
Okay.
he did the cover for me. He did the cover for the first book. And this one is after the events of the first book. Our hero, Samuel, who is in the middle of the picture, he becomes, this is spoilers, so it's giving it away. But, you know, if you start reading book one, you can probably guess what's going to happen. But he becomes the powerful town magician for his town. But in the book, there's some interaction with his father. And you see how Samuel is the way he is because of his father. His father is the town drunk. Everybody makes fun of him. And that was a difficult thing for me, is how to portray a drunk, abusive father without showing them being drunk and abusive too badly in a kid's book. You know, a little bit of a balance. So I hope I did it well without scarring anybody or anything like that. But there are kids out there that have to deal with drunk, abusive parents. So putting it in a book, I feel may get them to be like, oh, I'm not the only one, you know, and, you know, so I didn't want to pull back all of it and cut it out like some people might say. Whole different topic. So this one, I started thinking, why is his father like that? Why is Samuel's father the way he is? There's got to be a reason. There's no mother there, but there's a father, and he's the town drunk, and he hates magic. Samuel wants nothing more than to be magic, because in their world, people have magic. He doesn't. And why does his father hate it? Well, we find out Samuel did have magic. And then I started thinking, well, if Samuel has magic, how did he get it? Because it's normally passed down. So that led into this whole background story now. I mean, it is book 2. It's not an origin story or anything, but we find out a lot of Samuel's father and why he is the way he is and what happened. And Samuel and Rory go on another adventure to find out what happened to lead to this and what the truth is. They're not hearing the whole truth. So what we have on the cover here is Samuel at some glowing magical bars with his father behind the bars, not looking good. And then there's an not evil, but a bounty hunter looking very strict and stern, looking over at them in the corner. And she's got on her robes the bounty hunter symbol. I had Tom come up with a good bounty hunter symbol. Of course, it kind of looks like a Tesla symbol, which is not what I wanted, but it is the bounty hunter symbol in the town magician world. But I do some fun stuff with that. I've made some temporary tattoos. So kids that, you know, are interested when they come to my author table can get some temporary tattoos to put on and play and be bounty hunters. So that's, you know, expanding my world with that a bit.
I think it's really cool. Like I didn't catch on to the bounty hunter, and that now that you tell me, but you know, that's a good selling marketing thing. Like,
yeah,
all the Tesla buyers out there, like,
right, yes.
What did we miss? Is there a book?
Right.
You know,
and I already have the outline idea for book 3, which leads right from book 2. Book 2 has a cliffhanger ending. And so book 3 picks up right there, sending Rory and Samuel on another adventure out, you know, to discover, they got to find this scroll. That's all I'm going to say about it. But the cover is done because I wanted to have that ready, help me picture as I was writing the story. So basically that one has Samuel and Rory in the center, and surrounding it is arrows pointing at them all around. And in the background, you see some other figures. So that's all I'm going to say about that cover yet, but it's part of the whole journey they go on for book 3. And the thing is, I already know what happens at the end of book 3. And some people would say, oh, it's the ultimate climax of this trilogy, this arc, that Samuel's story, his character, this is the 3 books. But then book 4 is where the arc really continues. And even though I know there's something momentously huge, and people would say that's bigger than the end of book 4, I argue, wait till book 4, because what happens in book 4 is much more personal for Samuel. And for him, that is much bigger than the big thing that happens at the end of book 3. So I thought long and hard about that, because it seems like I should switch the stories a little bit, book 3 and 4. But I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So I've got a trilogy with 4 books.
So Stephen, is Samuel part of you?
That's a really good question. Probably. He was, very much teased and an outsider with amongst his town when he was growing up, and he wanted magic, which I guess could describe me. I'm definitely of the mind, if you don't look for magic, you won't find it. I had plenty of friends, unlike Samuel, but our school was very sports oriented, and I wasn't really a sports kid. I was band kid, and band kids were picked upon. So, I can reflect upon that a bit. But like the bully in book 1, I wrote some short stories to go with the books. They're available on the website for free. And there's a short story dealing with the bully from book 1 and how Samuel changes things with the bully leading into book 2 and then the rest of the series. So even, there's stories going on in my head that don't fit in the book as important, but I put them as short stories. They could have, but it didn't fit what I was trying to achieve with the book. So maybe he is a little bit of me. I think Rory's a little bit of me too. So maybe the Grand Wizard at sometimes also. It's kind of like watching The Big Bang Theory. I can say, oh, that, this is how I am with them. Believe me, I'm not the only one that has said I'm like this character like this and this character like this. So it's that way too. I can see reflections in all of them.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is because a lot of writers that write fantasy, they put a little bit of themselves into character.
Yeah. You kind of have to. It's hard not to. People, in fact, I wrote a short story for an anthology several years ago, and a friend of mine just got a hold of it. And he gets a hold of me, says, "What the heck, man?" I'm like, "Why? What's wrong?" He's like, "You killed us." I'm like, "What?" I had no idea what he was talking about. Here I forgot in the first paragraph of that story, I killed his whole family. So he's like, "Oh man, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry. No, I left the 2 youngest ones alive. So that's good."
There's still bloodline there.
Yes.
Dragons or wolves, Stephen?
Ooh, I'd go with wolves. I not just because of Hunter. Dragons are a little commonplace almost. One of my favorite series growing up was the Dragonlance series, where the world didn't have dragons until that story. They had lost dragons, and that story tells why they lost dragons, and that was one of my favorites growing up. But dragons are fine, but I think wolves are cooler.
And if you could jump into any book out there, what book would you jump into?
That's funny you asked that. There was a cartoon when my kids were little. I think it was called Stanley. Everybody wants to say Stanley Paper or Stanley Parable. It was just called Stanley. It was him and his sister would shrink down and jump into books and have adventures in the books, but they were like realistic animal books and stuff. So for Christmas that year, I got my son this really big animal book and pictures of him and his sister really little on cardboard so they could play in the book like a play set. You asked that, that's the first thing that cropped into my mind. But what book would I jump into myself? That's a tough choice. Maybe the Dragonlance series, but I'd probably be more like the Kender in that. And I'd be kind of a goofball that people have to deal with all the time, I guess. I don't know. I read a lot of Stephen King, and I sure as heck would not want to jump into any of those books.
Right? You'd be running.
Yeah, that's bad news for that. So,
but
yeah,
it makes the mind open up, right? And the reason that I asked that question is because of imagination, right?
Right.
If we could jump into a book, if we could jump into a movie or a film or a kid's cartoon, what would we jump into? And who will we be? What character will we play?
Right. Star Wars, Indiana Jones. I mean, I've got the posters. Those were some of my favorites growing up, maybe something like that. E.T., Gremlins. I can think of.
I think Gremlins would be cute.
Yes, that would be kind of fun. I've got a friend that wrote a book called The Haunted Forest Tour, and I wrote like a fan fiction of that with one of the characters running in the forest. And that would be kind of fun, except he gets eaten at the end. So I don't know if that would be a fun one to jump into. But that's with virtual reality now and the goggles and stuff, those are things we could do. You know, you could create a world based on a book and go live in that world through the VR. Very, extensive to do something like that, I think. But I'd love for it to take off a little more and do stuff like that.
Yeah. And Stephen, you gave me a word to describe yourself, and I can't even say it. Omnivorous? OMNIVOROUS.
Omnivorous. Oh, omnivorous.
My tongue doesn't twist that way, Stephen.
It took me a while to come up with what would be a good word. Yes. So I do a geekery podcast called Relentless Geekery with a friend of mine. And he's all the time saying things like, I don't understand people that are very defined. They like only this type of music and read only this type of book. He's like, I read so many different things. It's like I'm omnivorous with my entertainment delights. And I'm like, dude, that's the best way to describe it. A little of everything. I studied music in school, and we had to listen to all sorts of music, all styles of music. And I was in a jazz band. I was in a country band, a rock band, orchestral. So, there's not many types of music I don't like. I've got books on my shelf, so many books from so many different genres and styles and authors. And I read so many different things. So omnivorous is the word to describe me. In the animal world, speaking of all the animals, you got your carnivores and you got your herbivores, which eat meat and plants, and omnivores eat meat and plants. So that's where it comes from.
So you eat a steak with a salad.
Yes, absolutely. That's the best thing to do. I just had tonight some nice hummus with some peppers. No steak tonight, but that was good.
Well, you got to watch the steak with the wolf, right? Hunter will eat.
Oh, yeah. And that, we talk about him being a wolf. There was one time I gave him a bone that had some meat and stuff on it, and I had forgotten about it. And I went back out later, and he's whimpering. And then as I got closer to him, he growled, but he wouldn't move. And I'm like, what's going on? And I stood back and I was trying to talk to him, and he wouldn't come to me. He wouldn't get up, and he just kept whimpering. And I'm like, oh crap, did his leg break? His bad leg, did it break? What are we going to do? And he wouldn't get up all day long. And every time I got near him, he'd growl a little bit, not snapping, not meanly, just a little bit of a low rumble to warn me off and stuff. So I called my ex-wife and said, hey, you might want to get over here. Something's wrong with Hunter. And I think he may have broken his leg, and stuff. So she came over, and, thinking that we're going to have to put him to sleep, that this is the end. And she gets out of the car, and he sees her, and he jumps up and comes running over. And I'm like, you shyster, what? I'm like, you.
He just wanted to see the ex-wife.
Yes, he did. But he was growling because he was protecting his bone with the meat on it. And even though I gave it to him and I fed him and I wasn't going to take it, that's the wolf coming out of him. He was just warning me off. And the thing was, he was whimpering because he's like, I'm sorry, but please don't come near me with the bone. And he growled. He's like, please don't be mad. I'm sorry. It's my bone. I mean, he was kind of torn there. You could tell. And I'm like, man, I'm done with you. I told him, I'm disgusted with you. Take your stupid bone. And he buried it. He's got like several bones buried out there. I don't know where they all are. Yeah.
Male territory.
Yes. And it used to be if you fed him and then like went to grab the food, he'd growl and sometimes snap. As he got to know me and trust me, he doesn't do that anymore, but he will adjust and shift his body trying to push me away so I don't take his food. And I don't take his food, just to pick on him or tease him or anything. It's just sometimes I'm like, Hunter, stop eating. I'm not done yet. I've got something else to give you. And I want to move the bowl so I don't dump something on his head. And he'll growl and move and push me out of the way. I'm like, fine, you get it tomorrow.
You're not getting it tonight.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, I want to get into your writing resources, reading resources, talk, workshop classes. You offer a lot of stuff for homeschool.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. At my author tables, I've got a nice big sign with teachers in homeschool, and I've got resources that I talk to them about because working with the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, I've always worked with kids. So I'm trying to get involved with teachers to go into schools, but also after COVID, I know we had an upsurge in homeschooling. And I think a lot of parents still aren't ready for homeschooling, don't know what to do all the time. I am not a teacher. I'm not trained academically to be a teacher, but I think that also means I think outside the box a little bit and I do things a little different. I'm not so focused on worrying about grammar and spelling. I'm more worried and thinking of trying to get kids to use their imagination and write, because I think we don't do enough of that. We teach them how to spell, we teach them grammar, but they don't know how to write. They don't know how to tell stories. So what's the point in all the spelling and grammar? I think we should have younger kids just tell stories, write it, draw it, dictate it, whatever. Once they've told enough stories, then when they learn the spelling and the grammar, it makes more sense to them. So in my books, I do include words that kids may not know. I don't try and overwhelm them with big 50-cent words all the time, but I throw a few in that fit and that may be interesting to kids. That's a tough struggle sometimes to take words out or put words in without, breaking the flow of the story. Have I achieved it greatly yet? No, I'm still working on it, but I put words to know, discussion questions, and then writing prompts in the back of my books. So teachers and homeschool students or parents can get my book and have a classwork to do with them, to read it and work on that stuff right there from the book without having to take extra time. So, I'm hoping that it helps them, we can get these couple books and we've got spelling words and writing discussion and all that without too much extra work. So I know a lot of parents are doing homeschool and I'm hoping to help a little bit. And I want to make sure kids, that's the other thing. We shove books at kids to make them read books that they don't care about. They're not interested in. And if a kid is just learning how to read and they read a bunch of books that they don't care about, guess what? They're not going to be interested in reading. It's going to be harder to teach them and they're not going to read for the rest of their lives. So I know some parents, some schools are like, read what you want. And then we've got a couple books we're going to make you read, but you introduce those to them after they already like to read. So that's been one of my goals, is to write books that kids want to read, that they want to get to the end and get the next one. I think the Town Magician series is good. And I think kids enjoy it. I've had a lot of feedback with parents saying, I was reading this to my third grader and we were enjoying it together. Do you have the second one done? That's what I want to hear. I think my next series, which is coming out, I'm going to get started here soon, is even better for that. I think because I'm going to do a Goosebumps style series to go with it. So I think I'm going to have a lot of different opportunities for kids to find some books to enjoy.
I like that, the Goosebumps series, because my granddaughter likes reading the Goosebumps series. She also likes like the Archie kind of style books or the backwards books.
Yeah, the manga anime. The manga.
And I was like, why are you reading the book backwards, sweetheart? And she's like, Grandma, that's the way the book is made. Like you read from the back to the front. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting.
Right.
Stephen, your books, the Magician series, could it be turned into a board game for a family? Like
it's funny you say that, because game making is one of the other things I do sometimes enjoy. And I've thought of how to get that as part of my imagination and things that kids could do, kids, and use their imagination, but something they could do later in life. And there's been an upsurge in gaming and video games. So could Town Magician be? Possibly, maybe not with these characters though. I think it would work well doing some adventure style story, like a video game or maybe a board game, but something other than with these characters. And I actually did start working on that a little bit for book 3, because book 3 lends itself well to an adventure style video game. At least I was trying to think of a card game for kids that they could play with casting spells and stuff, and I just couldn't get one to click. Making games is hard.
Yeah. Well, then the reason I'm asking is because you said you have the writing prompts, right?
Yes.
So it kind of makes like an engagement with the family, like the parents and the children. Like they can, like, where do you see this going? Like, do you see them going right, left, or do they pause? Do we take a moment to pause?
With my video game classes teaching, one of the things I work on is choose your own adventures with kids, creating that, because thinking of the different choices and where that leads in your story, and still having a story is definitely a video game skill. So being able to write a choose your own adventure is a great practice for later telling stories in video game and having that branching narrative and still ending up, at an ending for that. So yeah, I'm the next series is the Oddish Quester series, and I'm working on a choose your own adventure based in that world because I think it works well for it, and I think kids would like it.
And I think that and board games are coming back.
Yes.
I'm noticing that at Christmas time, a lot of board games are out there, a lot of family activities, right?
Yes.
And learning how to spell and words that kids will say now in the new language, because I'm learning the new language of this generation. And I'm just like, what is that?
Right. I remember when all my kids were going around saying yeet, and I'm like, let's yeet. So then me and the wife were like overusing the word. So like, you guys sound ridiculous. Shut up.
Right? Well, me for the longest time it was that TBH. It was all over the social media, and I was like, "What the heck is TBH?" I'm trying to figure out the words. And then I finally I asked my son. I said, "Son, you have to tell me what TBH stands for because it's driving Mom crazy." And he's like, "Mom, it's to be honest." And I said, "What are you guys lying about?"
Yes.
Like, what are you lying about that you have to be honest? Like, I was just like, wow. And then the LOL, laugh out loud, and I was like,
well, yeah, there's the joke tweet. I don't know if it was ever true, but a mother trying to text her kids, hey, grandma died. We've got the funeral. If you could come home, LOL. They're like, Mom, why are you typing LOL? She's like, well, doesn't it mean lots of love? No.
right? Laugh out loud. What's wrong with you, Grandma?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn a lot of the language that is out there. We had a question that just came in, and it says, "How can fantasy writing help children believe in themselves?"
Well, it's funny that book one, even, I didn't think of a message to try and get over to kids. I didn't try and write Samuel so it could help kids deal with a drunk parent or believe in themselves and, magic can happen. But those kind of came out. And the good thing is in fantasy, you can say and do things sometimes that you may not easily be able to do in like a modern setting, like in a school. You can use goblins and ogres to represent evil entities or bad things. Sci-fi has done this forever. There were some shows on the old Star Trek that would have never passed the censors at the time if they were done in a modern setting, but because they were science fiction, it's like, it's just science fiction, and they let them through. So fantasy is a lot the same way. You can, and again, I didn't plan on messages. They just seem to come out when you're writing for kids, the way of thinking, maybe, or whatever. And, if some kids read a fantasy book, but they can see, oh my gosh, Samuel's dealing with a drunk parent. What's he do? And Samuel keeping up his hope, even at the point in the book where he's just like, I can't do it. I'm done with everything. They could be like, no, Samuel, don't. That's the hope. You want the kids to start cheering for him. And I think the end scene in book one, particularly where Samuel is trying to make sure he saves Rory and what that brings out in him. If there's a kid out there that reads that and says, you know what, I can be strong like that. Wow. I would have made, that'd be the best thing ever. That made the book totally worthwhile if one kid feels braver because of Samuel's journey. But you can do things that maybe you can't do if it was The Outsiders now or something like that.
Yeah, and I like that you're able to do that because there's a lot of adults that read children's books as well, right? So
yes,
they can resonate with that as well and say, you know what? Oh, the goblin is the drunk dad. You know what I mean?
right.
And I like that you were able to put that into your books because we need to have those conversations, but you were able to put it in a way that it wasn't heavy. It was, this
right.
is what it was.
And you asked about the messages and things like that. So I'm working on book 3, and purposefully haven't tried to think of, oh, what message do I want to get across? I'm just writing the story. I'm writing the book. The characters act it out. I just follow what they're doing. And I know at some point the inspiration, the message, whatever, it'll come out on its own. I don't have to force that. At least I see that the way I write. Other people may be different.
Well, it's when you're writing a book, right? You're just writing the words to the paper, and then that's when the editor gets it and all the other people get it. You know what I mean? But we're writing a story. So you're telling the story as you see it. And
Right.
everybody's like, how did Stephen see that? How did Stephen figure this out? Huh? Well, he's just writing, guys. He's just putting words to paper. And then it's
Right. I just write down what Hunter tells me to write.
like, or he girls.
Yeah.
Another question that came in is how authors can shape self-esteem through words.
We've seen that so much that, words do have power, that, kids that are bullied can carry that for their adult life. They feel the same way they did when they were in fourth grade getting bullied, and words have the power. And again, with fantasy, I think you get a little bit more leeway to say some things. It doesn't have to be another human. It could be an elf, and lots of adults aren't going to care if somebody's being mean to an elf, but kids understand and can relate to that elf. The next series I've got, The Oddish Questers, it is set in our world. They're a sibling investigative group. I tell people it's kind of like Scooby-Doo meets the X-Files. And I've got the siblings in there. There are 6 of them, and they are each very unique. So I think there will be a lot of kids that can relate to one character or the other. And one of the things I did after I started writing it, without thinking, I just started writing it. They were all siblings and kids and all that. But after all the issues we've had throughout our culture, our country, with people from other cultures, people with other skin, we'll say that, I changed the book a bit. Instead of them just being siblings, now they were all adopted, and they're all from different ethnicities. But I don't beat everybody over the head with it. I'm trying not to. We know that they're all a little different, and they're all adopted. And I'm hoping still that kids can relate, even if you're white, but the girl, Sierra, is black, but she's a tech genius, you can relate to her, and it doesn't matter what the skin color is. I don't make the skin color a big deal, but when it does come up, it's always an adult that points out, well, you guys, how can you be siblings and related? And the kids in the book are like all over it. And they're like, hey, you know what? We're more siblings than other families. And, they really get on it, because I wanted to show it's the other people that have the problem, not the siblings. Yeah. And then Hunter is in that book, The Oddish Questers. Hunter is in that one. He helps him out. And there's other things in it too, like the one character based on my stepson with Asperger's. He's reflected in this character in the book. Doesn't talk a lot, but he's really smart and strong and very caring. But sometimes they have to talk to him differently to get him to comprehend. He's smart enough to understand quantum physics, but he doesn't care because it doesn't relate. But if somebody needs saving because there's a new kitten they have to take care of, he gets that, and he'll go make sure that person gets saved. If you just tell him, oh, quantum physics stuff, it's like, doesn't even care.
You lost me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he's like, nope, you lost me. But if somebody needs help, I'm there, Dad. Like,
and it's all based on my kids and stepkids, their interactions with the one sibling that has Asperger's. It's based on the real life of that. And in reality, we all joke about it. We tease him about it. It's like, oh, well, there's Adam's Asperger's coming out. And he's like, he gets it. And we're joking, just like they all pick on me because I lose my keys and my glasses everywhere. They tell me to check the cabin. We've got a small cabin, and I lose things up there all the time. So I think the next book, even more so, is going to have reflections of that, because it has a wide variety of characters in it that the kids can relate to.
What kind of comes into the question that just came in is how do you balance fun and moral lessons in your writing, Stephen?
You know what? I don't try to put lessons in. I think they just come out. I think it gets too heavy handed. If I would sit here and try and think of lessons and try and write them in, I think it would get too heavy handed and not seem real. I think by just knowing the characters and writing the characters as they are, that the messages can come out by that. And, I'm not trying to write a book to teach Bible lessons and things or Aesop's fables or anything like that. But again, there are lessons in there. It's hard to write for kids and not have lessons in there. Yeah. I just don't make that a focus for my writing, and I don't concentrate on it because they've always come out anyway. And I think that's the best way for them to come out in my writing.
We have a question here. I want to get it out to you. Have you seen real examples of kids transformed by your stories?
I've had a couple. So I'm not as widely known as J.K. Rowling. I'm working on that.
He's getting there, guys. He's getting there.
Yes. But I have had some feedback from a couple parents that their kids loved the books and wanted to read another one, wanted to read more. And the parents even said, I was reading it with them and it was great. I have had one kid get a hold of me that they got book one. And I promised them book two. And then they're like, hey, where's book two? I'm like, I'm, finishing it. And I got to make sure it's right and good. And they're like, I'm ready for book two. Where's book two? So I actually sent them the earlier manuscript before I did all my final polish and edit. And I told them, I said, look, it's not the final. I'll get you that. But, this will give you 90% of the story without anything I'm going to change. So I've had a little bit of that transformation. I haven't had enough exposure yet. And that's what I'm really working on. My big goal right now in my local area is becoming known as the local kids author. I want to, go to the grocery store, get gas and be recognized by everybody. In our area, we have this lawyer that everybody knows because he has freaking billboards everywhere throughout.
You got to get the billboards up, Stephen.
Yes. And that's what I want to do. Everybody knows who this lawyer is. They know what his, message is, his push. They know his face and they kind of make fun of it sometimes, but I'm sure he doesn't care because that's part of being that celebrity in the local area. And that's what I'm trying to be now, what I'm pushing towards. Once I get that exposure more spread out, I'll probably start hearing more feedback from people that have read, hey, I read this book. I read that book. My kid loved it. This happened. It really helped me through a tough time. That, those are the things you want. You can't force.
Is there where did it go? What's the most meaningful message a child has shared with you about your books? Has a child come up to you and say, Stephen, I really like that character, or you could dig a little deeper for that one? Or has a child come up to you and said any of that?
No, I haven't really gotten much of that. I do have, with the Oddish Questers, I do have a picture book that I created. And I have had several kids see it. And when I talk to them and the parents and explain what it is, the kid's like, oh my gosh, I need that. And the parents like, oh, we got to get it for them because that sounds like them, all, wanting to go out and explore and find animals. And that's what happens in the picture book. And kids are like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And they get excited. So I haven't gotten it on the back end so much as on the front end with telling kids about a book and they get excited about what it is. And I've had that a couple times.
And Stephen, if you could hand your books to anybody in the world, who would you hand it to?
I want to say Stephen King because he's been my favorite author forever, but I don't think he would enjoy it. And I don't think my books are at the level he would say, oh my gosh, this is great. So then I'd feel bad. So I don't want to do that.
But he might twist it. He might make the magician really like a creepy magician. Like,
oh yeah, that's all I need is for Stephen King to twist my books. That would bum me out. But now I think I'd love to meet R.L. Stine and handle, especially because my next series is going to be based on like Goosebumps. It's going to be a Goosebumps-like series. And he was born in Ohio, down in Columbus, right near where I used to live. So it gives him a little hometown thing. And I've been watching a masterclass from him, and I really like what he says and learn some things. not learn so much as it emphasized things I already knew a lot, which I thought was great. And he says some wonderful things in this masterclass. So I'd love to hand them to him. And I didn't think about it, but he's actually going to be at a couple places in town down in Columbus. But the tickets, of course, are all sold out. I waited too long to find out.
You're
So I'm
gonna
like,
stand on the sideline.
I thought about that too. But,
Be that guy with the poster.
yeah. RL sign, please stop, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. Hopefully, he does something next year and I'm going to jump all over it. But okay, my next series, I'm not going to say the names. There's a couple characters in it that may remind some people of some certain characters that they may have seen on TV. And it may be very an homage to these characters that I love. And these characters do go to different conventions. And I think once the book is done, I'm going to pay the money to go meet and do a meet and greet and author thing and hand them my book and not tell them why I'm handing it and hope they read it. And then hope they don't sue me because they said it's too close to the characters. I don't mention names. Let's just say that. I don't mention the names in it, but it's just some characters that are near and dear to my heart. And I think the actors that played the characters, if I can meet them, I would hope they could enjoy it and see what they brought out in those characters for all the fans that love it, the show.
And Stephen, favorite action figure?
Favorite action figure was Han Solo in Hoth gear because it was the first Star Wars figure I got. And I still have the figure, but I lost the gun. And my son found a gun and got it for me for my birthday one year. And everybody's like, so what did your son get you? I said, this little plastic gun. They're like, that's it? And I'm like, you don't understand the significance of that little plastic gun. So that's my favorite figure, the Hoth. I still love it. I don't have all my figures. My father got rid of them. That's a whole heartfelt story. I should write into a book. I've replaced a lot of them, and I still got a lot of my Star Wars stuff spread out throughout the house. It's my decorations.
And Legos. I want to talk to you about Legos before we wrap up. What about Legos?
So I don't like all the kits they have nowadays because, again, kids don't use their imagination. They follow directions. They make a kit, and that's it. When I was younger, my grandmother worked at Goodwill, the big Goodwill distribution in Akron. For a year, every bit of Lego that came in, she would buy, and she kept them in a garbage bag. For Christmas, she gave my cousin those garbage bags of Lego, and we literally dumped garbage bags of Lego onto the floor, and then we built. We would build anything, cities, all imagination. And that's why I mentioned Lego, because it's still a pure form of enjoyment that we can do. And there's adults that like it. So get the bucket of Lego without the kit, dump it on the ground and get on the ground with your kid. If it's hard to get up, then just stay on the ground a little longer so you don't have to keep getting up and down. That's the thing. I think Legos are still fantastic tools to help spark imagination. What are you building? Well, it's a dinosaur with a giraffe head and he's eating a car. Anything you want, encourage it and get crazy. That's a time as an adult you have permission to get crazy. Play with Lego.
I think it's really important for us to open that imagination again, right? It's just create. I'm like you with those kits. Those kits are just like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
There's no imagination there. Everyone's kit looks the same. When you complete the kit, it's not different, right? It's not like your house looks different than my house and the ship,
Agreed.
right? And go to Goodwill. Christmas is coming. Go to Goodwill and get some Lego blocks. Like, have some fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen Lego at Goodwill for a while. It gets rough. They actually have areas with collectibles now. I think the problem is eBay ruined a lot of that. And when they're pulling stuff at Goodwill, they know what will sell better on eBay. So they pull things aside and put them on eBay sometimes. So I think that's killed it a little bit, honestly.
So, Stephen, if anybody would like to reach out to you and have you as a guest or check out your books, where can they reach you? If you want to spell out your website as well for the audio listeners.
Yes. So website has all my connections and everything. It's SA-Schneider. It's SA-Schneider is SCHNEIDER.com. It's the German spelling, not the Americanization of it. So everything's there. All my connections on the Facebook, at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can look up SAS Author. I'm the same at all of those. And yes, if you're a teacher, especially in this area, Northeast Ohio, I'd love to come to your school, talk to your kids. Homeschool, I'd love to help out with any projects in that. Baltimore is becoming my second home because they're really encouraging of authors, but my son is out there and he's a librarian. So I can go out to Baltimore, visit my son, and go to an author event. So it makes it a double trip for me, a win-win for everybody. So, yeah, please, I'd love to hear some people that heard me here on the podcast, other podcasts, or, a school visit, even virtual school visits. I've got some things I could do with that too, workshops and things.
Do you have anything coming up, Stephen, that you'd like to mention?
I have a workshop I'm teaching at a local bookstore. Just opened up, a friend of mine. So we're doing it. It's more an adult one. It's not it could be kids, but it's not based on writing and books. It's unraveling self-publishing, to help explain, I get so many questions from people. I paid money for this, or, I tried to do this. And it's like, no, don't do that. Or, no, just go do this and check this out. So I might not have all the answers, but I'm trying to help out with what I do know to help people get started. And we're going to follow it up with another workshop that's basically marketing. I live in an area where people want to do this, but we don't necessarily have tons of money for ads and, billboards like the lawyer. But I've learned some things on what you can do to help push that out and get eyes on things and some marketing. Perfect? No, but if you're just getting started in publishing, these are some things that you could look at doing right from the start. That'll help you out a lot. So those couple classes, and I've got some video game storytelling workshops coming up at Aurora and Lakewood rec centers. So we're doing some storytelling workshops there. Those are in January. And that's what I got right now. And then usually I go to Biomed for a couple things for video game storytelling and career days and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephen. We're just going to do a closing summary, and then we're going to wrap up this tea, and we're going to be back same time, same place next week, and we're going to do it all over again. Oh, no, we're only Tuesday, right? We're Tuesday.
It's only Tuesday.
Yeah, it's only Tuesday. Miss Liz is not Friday yet.
Right.
We'll be back on Thursday, but tonight's tea time with Stephen Snyder brought us back to the joy of wonder, where imagination becomes a bridge between generations, and stories teach us that bravery comes in many forms. Through his words, Stephen showed us that storytelling isn't just for entertainment. It's a call to explore who we are and what we dream to be. As we close this tea time, may we all remember the inside of each of us and our lives, a story waiting to be told, and that imagination is a compass that guides us all home. Thank you guys for joining me tonight on Tea Time. Thank you to all the viewers on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of those platforms. I appreciate all of your support, and we'll see you on Thursday. Miss Liz not done this week yet, and we'll do this all over again. Until then, enjoy your evening, guys.
Thank you.